where we had just made the first name, middle name, last name into uppercase function, and then we had just put some logic where that if the middle name is coming as null, concate only the first name and the last name, otherwise concate all the columns. And then we had previously created this cleanse list for the gender column, where we had tested the gender column with an exact match and a regular expression match. And then finally we have created one graph function like cleanse customer, where we have called both the one of the graph function cleanse name and the cleanse list. So in case we feel that there are some reusable components which we are going to use at multiple places, then we can create it here separately. But if you know that I am going to use a particular functionality only for the one time, it is not going to be used multiple times, then there is no need to create it separately. This also like what I have done cleanse name, where I was doing where we had made the first name, middle name and last name into uppercase. So that usually we do at one place only. Usually it is not reused. So but just for testing purpose I had created it separately. But if I know that I am not going to use it at multiple places, then I don't need to create it separately. I will create one final function, graph function, and in that only I will put all the logic. Because like as we discussed that in MDM side there is no problem. I can have like multiple cleanse functions or the graph functions here. Separately I can use, or I can directly code everything into the mapping itself. But the problem is in the IDD, that is the Informatica Data Director application, because it cannot use a mapping. It can use only a graph function, and that also only one. So that's why even if we have created multiple functions, that is fine. But at the end, we have to create a final one graph function for each base object. And there I have to put logic for all the columns. And then once we have put it, we can call this graph function like cleanse customer. Like similarly, we can create for address and other tables. This we can call in our mappings also, and we can use it in our IDD application also. So three things we can create. There are three types of cleanse functions: regular expression function, cleanse list, and cleanse graph. So three types of customization you can do here in the cleanse functions. And usually most of the time we create the graph functions itself. Sometimes for the data standardization we use this cleanse list, and then the regular expression function is generally not used because we already have that in our separately as a cleanse function. So there is no separate requirement as such to create a regular expression function. And then like we had seen the properties which are there in the staging tables, which is about the raw table and the data detection process. So there's this in the setting tab. So like we discussed, this setting tab will be disabled for you. Once you create any staging table, you will see that the setting tab is disabled. And if you go to the backend Oracle side, you will see that only one table is created. That is the staging table itself. There will be no supporting tables. Once you create a mapping between a landing table and this staging table, you will see the setting tab getting enabled. And if you go at the backend, you will see that 4 supporting tables are getting created. So those 4 are basically raw table, reject table, PRL table, and OPL table. 4 table gets created, but as of now, like only 3 tables are being used. And these are the settings here for the raw table and the delta detection. So depending on the requirement, we can enable either the raw or the delta detection. Usually either one of them is selected. Delta detection is rarely I have seen being used. And even raw I have seen like sometimes in some places I have seen that raw is enabled for 2 to 3 months and then it is getting deleted automatically. And then finally we have seen the process server, that if you want to run any job, like we had running the stage jobs and the load jobs for loading the data into our staging tables and the base object table. Plus also we did some testing. We have tested our mappings, we tested our cleanse functions. So those things are possible only if you have registered your process server here. So for registering the process server, we can just click on the add button, and in the server name you can put localhost, or you can even use the IP like 192.168.1.97. That's the server IP you are using to connect to the MDM. So the same IP we can use it here, and other things we can just leave as it is. So once you have created it, just test it using this test button. The question mark button is there on the right hand side. If you click on this, it will show that the process test succeeded. If it is succeeded, then you will be able to basically test your mappings and the cleanse functions and even run the jobs. Any questions that anyone has before we proceed? Okay. So now we had covered till module 3. Module 3 is basically the stage process, and the stage process, what it does, it loads the data from your landing table to the staging table by doing all the cleansing and the transformations. So now once the data is there in your staging table, the next process is the load process, which is configuring the load process. Load process basically loads the data from your staging table to the base object table. So usually not much things happen at that place, means when you load the data from your staging table to the base object table, mostly it is copied as it is without any change. But some things happen, basically trust, validations, lookup. So these 3 to 4 things happen during the load process. So we'll be discussing about those things, like what are the things happen when we load the data from the staging table to the base object tables. So first is the trust part. Trust, like we have discussed initially during the introduction part, like what is trust and why do we need to use trust in the MDM. So basically trust we have to use in scenarios where I am getting data for a particular column from more than one system. So that's the only criteria. If someone says that there is a customer table where you have 50 columns, how you will know that on which column you should apply trust and on which column you should not apply trust? So that we can know by looking at the source system, which source is giving me data for which column. So if you look into that, you can easily identify that, okay, for a particular column I am getting data from only one system. For any other column I am getting data from more than one system, maybe 2 systems, it might be 3 systems, means at least more than one system should be there, minimum 2 systems. So if there are minimum 2 systems who are providing the data for any particular column, then you will have to use a trust. So trust we have to use because I am getting data from 2 systems, so I don't know which system data is more accurate or correct. So that is the reason why I need to use a trust here. So trust is basically decided by the business. So business owners will be there for each and every system. So in what we can do is, from our side, is we can analyze that and then give it a report, prepare a report and give it to them that from customer table these are the 5 or 10 columns, and for this column I am getting from data from these systems. So the business owners from all the systems basically will sit together. They need to analyze a sample set of data. So they will take some sample set of data from each one of them. They will try to analyze that for which system the data looks more better. So depending on that, they will give us that which system is more trusted. So they give us an ordering that, for example, source 1 is more trusted, then the source 2 is trusted, then the source 3 is trusted. Like this, they will give an ordering, and that they have to give for each and every column. Because, for example, I have first name, middle name, and the last name column. So this, after analyzing the data, they might say that for first name, you can trust source 1. For middle name, you can trust source 2. For last name, you can trust source 3. So it can change. So that is fully business based. Business has to give us. Sometimes nowadays, like business is aware of, means completely aware of this feature at trust. So they only give us the numbers also, because businesses can tell us like which system is more trusted, and we now have to tell MDM also like which system is more trusted. So how do we tell MDM? We will tell MDM by using numbers. So we can put any number like between 0 to 100, so that MDM knows that which system is more trusted. So usually business gives us the number nowadays, but in case they are not giving us the numbers based on their recommendation, I can give my own numbers. So here the first thing is identifying the columns. So the input variable here is like name, address, and email. So we have identified, for example, that for name, address, and email, I am getting data from more than one system. Then source reliability means which system is more reliable. So like in this slide, there are two systems, SFA and IMS is mentioned here. So we have given that SFA is more trusted. So it is having a trust of 90 and minimum trust is 30. And similarly for IMS, maximum and minimum. So we need to specify two things, maximum trust and the minimum trust. The next is the decay period that we have to specify. So here it is mentioned that email address decays over 1 year, physical address over 3 years. So this again comes from the business. You will see business can look into the data, and this is basically what is mentioned here, like email address decays over 1 year. This is basically business can look into the data and they can analyze like how frequently the customers are updating their email addresses, how frequently the customers are updating their addresses. So this is that time period, because we can say that data has a life of its own and it keeps on changing. We might change our email addresses. If we are living on a rented house, probably we might change after every 2 to 3 years our house. So the data keeps on changing, and once it keeps changing, we also update that, especially like in a bank. We'll go and say that I have updated my address. So depending on that thing, they can analyze like how frequently the people are updating their addresses on an average basis, and this is the time period. So what this does, so this is a decay period they have to specify, like 1 year for email, 3 years for physical address. So what it does is it will reduce your trust value. So it will reduce your trust value from 90. For example, SFA in this slide is having a trust score of 90 and the minimum trust is 30. So if I load any email, for example, I have inserted an address with an email ID. So for the email today, the trust will be highest because I have loaded it today. So the trust will be 90. But going forward, it will keep decreasing because I have given a time period of 1 year. So within a period of 1 year, the trust keeps decreasing, and at the end of 1 year, the trust will come down to 30. So from 90, which is today, just 1 year, after 1 year, the trust will go down to 30. So it keeps decreasing at a constant speed. So there are 3 speeds that we will be discussing later. Based on that, it keeps decreasing. So this is basically done so that in case later on I get an update, that value should get promoted into the master record. So that is the reason why this downgrade has been provided. And finally, we have a validation rule. So validation rule is basically used to downgrade the trust. So here it is mentioned like downgrade trust if a phone number has fewer than 10-digit number. So business has like analyzed the data, and based on that they will tell us that you can use the phone number of this particular system, source system is more trusted, or the first name or the middle name from these systems are more trusted. But we know that at a later point of time there are possibilities that we might get a wrong data. And how you can know that? You can know that by looking at the source. So usually, like for example, we can take this scenario like phone number. So phone number, as of now, when the business looked into the source data, whatever data they had as of now, all the data has like 10-digit number. So they told that okay, this system looks good. But when I went to the forms, means the source system will have a form through which they are entering the data. So when I looked into the form, I saw that there is no validation check there. Means user has to enter the phone number, but there is no check that phone number has to be 10 characters. It might be less, user might enter less than 10 character also, or he might enter more than 10 character also. So that check is not there. So as of now, there was no mistake that happened, but we don't know tomorrow because there is no validation check. Someone might enter less than 10 digit or more than 10 digit number as a phone number by mistake. So we know that this might happen. So that is why we will put a validation check, that in case I get a phone number less than or greater than 10 digit number, we should not consider that phone number. If the other source system, like so for example source 1 is giving me less than 10 digit number and source 2 is giving me a phone number which is a 10 digit number, then I should take it from the source 2, not from source 1. So that is a validation rule. So this we decide basically by looking at the source data and the source form, because as I just told that there are millions of records and business cannot go and look into all the millions of records. They only take some sample set of data, maybe multiple times they will be taking and looking into the data, and based on that they have told you that for phone number you can trust this system, for first name you can trust this system. But at a later point of time, I know that data might come wrongly also, because I have not tested everything, or because in the forms maybe till now there is no issue, but maybe tomorrow the data entry operators who are entering the data might enter something wrongly, because in the forms only there is no validation check. So usually nowadays, once these things are identified, even the source systems are correcting that. So usually the source says that okay, I will correct it from my side, I will make like phone number, I will put some validation in my phone number that it should not be less than or more than 10 digit numbers. Or if the data is going to the MDM side, and in my case for example first name, middle name, last name, everything is in a label column, so I will try to make that first name and last name as a mandatory column, so that whenever a user enters, they enter like first name and the last name mandatory.
I have a question. This is George.
Yeah, just
Okay, so the validation rules.
yeah.
So we do some validation when we load the staging tables, right?
Yeah, that's a different validation. And here we see, so if this happens, if, for example, I have to take the source data. So in the source data, there might be a phone number which is less than 10 digit number.
Right.
It is possible. So if it is less than 10 digit number, I cannot reject a record, because that's a customer data. I have to insert a record with a wrong data because I cannot correct it.
Okay, so if the format of the, let's say, phone number is incorrect, we still load it.
Yeah, we have to load all the data. We cannot reject any source data because of these issues. Because the client can say, I have only this data, I cannot help it out.
Okay, so how we decide when to reject? Like, what will be the criteria for rejecting the records?
That is by the business. If business means when we will be discussing with the business, at that time business will tell us that whether I should reject this record or whether I should not reject this record. Whether, like the phone number, if phone number less than is 10, sorry, if the phone number is less than 10 digit, whether I should reject the record or process the record. So usually the scenarios are very less for rejections because business will just tell us that I am not sure about that, means, or I cannot update it as of now. You insert it later on. You can let me know that what are the records where the phone number is less than 10 digit. Probably we will try to fix it up. So okay, later, once they update it, it will come as an update into the MDM also.
Okay, I understand. I'm just trying to understand the relationship between the validation rules and the decay of the trust. So okay. I mean, if the phone number is invalid, I mean, in my mind, there's no trust to this phone number, right?
No, yeah, means we are discussing scenarios where like I am having trust on the phone number. So for example, I have two source systems and both the source systems are giving me phone number. So in that case, I will have to use a trust because two systems are giving me phone number. So I don't know that data from which system is a correct one. So see, if we think about a developer perspective, or if you are working as an analyst also, for me everything is a correct. I am not bothered about that. Whatever comes, take it and insert it, make it as a master data. So this is basically a decision of the data, like the business persons, the data stewards who are there, that which data should be inserted into the master record. So if I am getting phone number from two systems, usually they analyze the data, means only a sample set of data because there are millions of records, and after analyzing the data they will say that okay, you can trust source 1 for phone number. So based on that I will give my number. I will say that source 1 is 90, source 2 is 80. So right. MDM knows that because for source 1 I have given a trust or score of 90, it is more trusted. So always it will try to promote that record into the master record. So suppose now source 1 is giving me a phone number which is a 9-digit number, and source 2 is giving me a data which is like 10-digit number. So MDM what will think? It will think that source 1 I have given a trust score of 90, means the value will be correct. So it will try to promote the 9-digit phone number into the master record, which is not correct.
That's right.
So that is what we are doing using validation rule. So in validation rule, we are checking that is phone number less than 10 digit. So we found that yes, it is less than 10 digit. So what we say do that we will downgrade the trust. So we will say that downgrade it by 50%, for example.
Okay, but how do you decide like how to degrade it? Like, to me, if something is wrong, is wrong. So I mean, it's not like a slightly wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah, it's just wrong.
How do you degrade it? Do you degrade it on 50% or degrade it 100%?
We have to downgrade it. For example, here, if you consider the slide, for example, I have an SFA system and the IMS system, which I have given 90 and 60. So suppose like SFA system is more trusted, but it is giving me a phone number which is like 9-digit number. IMS system is giving me a phone number which is like 10-digit number. So now, if I have to reduce it, I have to reduce it by such a percentage that SFA comes, when the trust score of SFA system should come down beyond 60.
I understand, but then
yeah, so like I cannot reduce it by only 10% or 20%. I have to reduce it by such a percentage that at least it comes to like 59. So if it comes to 59,
But
then only
is it based on just one number, or it's based on like some kind of percentage of those errors?
No, it is based on what numbers you have given, like 90 and 60. So you have to give the downgrade by such a percentage that the 90 comes beyond 60, below 60.
No, when I say number, I mean it based on one phone number, like based on one row, you are degrading it, or based on the total number of incorrect values in your data?
No, this is row level. For every row and every column, this setting has to be done. So for every row, it will downgrade.
Okay. For every row. Just because one row was incorrect, it will degrade on every row, or it just degrade just for one specific?
Only one specific row. If one row is giving me bad data, only for that row it will downgrade. For other rows which are giving me my correct data, for those rows there will be no downgrade.
Okay.
So we'll see on some slides.
One more question. Like,
yes.
So when the 9-digit phone number comes, this validation rule will reduce the trust of that and allow the second trust is a thing which is 10-digit to go to the main.
Master. Master. Yes.
Okay.
But
so this trust and all is only while we are making master records, right? When we are giving it back to the user, the master records, we don't tell this is trust is this much, this is this much, right?
Yes. So trust is basically, we'll see that next scenario, like when this trust is applied by MDM. So trust is basically applied only in two scenarios. The first scenario is like when we merge two or more records, or when we send an update for any particular record. So these are the two scenarios when this trust and validation rules are applied. And one more thing I want to tell here is what will happen if both the systems are giving you bad data, like SFA system and IMS system both are giving you 9-digit phone number. In that case, MDM will again downgrade for both the SFA system as well as IMS system, and even after downgrading, it will promote the SFA system into the master record, because see, something it has to promote. Based on the logic we had given that okay, phone number is less than 10 digit, suppose downgrade by 50%. So both in this case, with what we discussed is like only SFA system is giving me bad data. So if I reduce by 50%, SFA will be 45, IMS will be 60. So IMS will get promoted into the master record. But now I have a scenario where both of them are giving me bad data, SFA and as well as IMS. So what MDM will do, MDM will downgrade both of them by 50%. So SFA will become 45, IMS will become 30. So now SFA is having 45, which is more trusted. So SFA value will get promoted into the master record. So if both are bad, we cannot help it out. One of the bad will go into the master record. But if something is correct,
if it doesn't have a phone number and only IMS has it, what will happen?
Then IMS will get promoted. If some value is there, that will get promoted. If SFA is sending me null value and IMS is giving me value, IMS will get promoted into the master record, even if it is a bad data.
Okay.
Because we have to promote something. If there is some value, it has to be promoted. So what we are doing check is, from our side we can just do this check that if something is correct data from other source system, we should promote it, because initially business has analyzed the data and probably by looking into the data they told that you trust SFA, but there might be some bad records in the SFA system and there might be some good records in the IMS system. So whatever is good data, I should pick it up. So let us see like some scenarios that will be more clear now to you how it happens basically. So the first scenario is when two base object record merge. So that's an advanced topic. Merge we have not covered, we are just in the load process. So once we load the data, we have to run the match process and then the merge process. So that's basically module 5, which we have not covered, but I'm just telling you the scenario like how it works. So in my base object, I have loaded these two records. It might be from the same source system and it might be from a different source system. Both are the possibility here. So now when I ran the match process, MDM identified that both the records are duplicate. 100 and 200 are a duplicate record and they needs to be merged. So MDM will calculate the trust. Suppose that on the name and the phone number, both of them trust is enabled. And you have given some numbers, minimum trust, maximum trust, decay period, all those things are given. So based on all those, MDM has calculated these values. And this is at runtime, means these values are not stored anywhere, so you cannot go and look into this like what is the current value. But in MDM I will show you, there is some place where you can go and check this value. But internally in the tables it doesn't store. So MDM has calculated this value and finally it found that for the name 200 is more trusted, for the phone number 100 is more trusted. So now what it will do, it will promote the phone, the name from 200, and so name has been promoted from here. So 200, the name has been promoted into the master record, and the phone number from 100 has been promoted into the master record. So that is based on the trust, because once it calculated it, it found these are more trusted, so it promoted it. Now row ID object 100, if you say about row ID why 100 survived, so that is not important, because see I am merging two records. These 100 and 200 are duplicate records, so any one of them can survive. Either 100 survives or 200 survives, it is not important for me. Main thing is the data, because this is my system column. So which data should get promoted into the master record, that is decided by this trust and the validation rule.
So are these two records from different source systems, or?
No, it might be from the same system also, it might be from the different system, because same source system can also have duplicate records. So both the possibilities are there.
So how did it decide this second row name is correct? The 200,
Yeah.
it's got a highest trust, 71.
Yes, correct.
But how did it come up with that 71?
Yeah, that is what it will like. We have to give the values, basically the maximum score, the minimum score, the decay period, all those things are specified. So based on that, we'll see like there is a survivorship and order of precedence based on which it decides. But this trust is calculated based on the time period. So if, for example, both are from the same system, in that case, I have a maximum value and the minimum value and a decay period. So there are some columns using which it takes into consideration and calculate this trust score. So based on that only the trust is coming similar. Means for one record it is coming as 62, for one record it is coming as 71.
But how did you identify it has to be merged?
No, that we have run the match process. That is what I told. That is a next process basically. Once the load is done, so I will be creating a match rules that I want to match the data based on suppose name column. So that's I will take a fuzzy basically. So even if there are some differences in the data, it will try to identify that this is a duplicate record. So once you have configured the match rules, you have run the match, then there is a match table where it will put the data that 100 is matching with 200.
Okay.
So once like that is the next process when we do the match process. So once we do the match, it will tell us that 100 is matching in with 200 and we need to merge it. So this I am not merging it, MDM will automatically merge this record. So if MDM is merging it, it will calculate the trust, and if there is validation, it will calculate based on the trust and validation that what is the final trust score, and based on that it will try to promote it into the master record. Similarly, for example, the other scenario which is like an update scenario. So in the update scenario, I have the same record. I have like 71 and 56. This is my base object record on the top. And from the second, I have a data from the staging table. So when I loaded the data from my staging table, again it calculated the trust and validation rule was done. So based on that, it again came up with numbers like for the name it is 75, but for the phone number it is 50. So in this case, what it does is it will just promote the name into the master record. Phone number will not get promoted into the master record. So where the phone number will be, this phone number or this updates will be there in the cross-reference table. So see, whenever an update comes into the MDM always updates the cross-reference table. After updating the cross-reference table, means the row ID object 100. So in the cross-reference also, I have a row ID object 100. So it will go and update the name and the phone number in the cross-reference table. After it has updated that into the cross-reference table, it will calculate the trust and the validation rule. And here it found that the name is more trusted, but the phone number is not trusted. So it has just promoted the name into the master record. The phone number was not promoted. So the xref table always maintains the latest data from a source system, but that might not be there in your base object level, because base object level it will only go if it is more trusted. If it is less trusted, it will not go. So these are the two scenarios basically when it calculates this trust, or basically when the trust and the validation rules are applied. So what we have talked about the trust, like if for the phone number and the name I have used trust, in that case MDM is doing all this processing, means based on whatever settings we have done, maximum trust, minimum trust, the key period or the time period that we have given. Based on all those, it is calculating the trust, and then if it is also calculating the validation rule, that if there is any validation failure or not, and then it is coming with up a final trust score. But what will happen in scenarios where we don't have any trust on the columns? Because see, trust I am putting because I am getting data from more than one system. That is the reason of using trust. But there will be some columns for which I am getting data only from a single system. And if I am getting data from single system, I don't need any trust. So in this case, what will happen here? Suppose like for the name and the phone number, I don't have any trust. So initially I have 100 in my base object. And now I am sending an update. So if you are sending an update, whatever update you are sending will get promoted into the master record. So that's the difference basically. If there is no trust and you are sending any update, it will get promoted into the master record, because MDM thinks that this is an update, latest update. So if it is an update, it should be a correct data. So it will promote that into the master record. Only if the trust is there, then only it will calculate the trust, otherwise it doesn't calculate it. So here it's mentioned like if the trust is switched off for a column, or basically we have not applied trust, then the most recent updated value from any source is the survived value onto the base object. And only switch on trust for a column if two or more the column. So now let us go to the MDM and see how do we enable the trust for any particular column. So in the columns, like I am currently under the customer, I have columns basically. If you go to the columns, in the columns itself, you have this option of trust and the validation rules. So first thing that you have to do is you need to come here to the columns and select trust for all the columns. For whichever column you are getting data from more than one system, you will enable the trust here. And similarly, once whatever are the trusted column, for those trusted column, if you want to do any validation check, it is not mandatory to do a validation check, but if you want to do a validation check, you have to select validate here. So only the trusted columns can be selected as a validation, because validation, what it does, validation basically downgrades the trust score. And if there is no trust on the column, there is no use of validation rule. So if you have selected any column as a trusted column, then only you should select it for the validation also. So once you have selected this, that the trust on the column, then what you need to go to the systems and trust, which is the third one under the model workbench. So as of now, if you go in your ORS, basically, you will see only one thing, system. You will not see anything in the trust. But once you have selected, you will see, even if you have selected one column, that is fine. You will see that base object coming here, and all the columns that you have selected will come up here. So like I have selected 5 columns here as a trust, so all the 5 columns are visible. So now if I click on any column, so I have selected the first name column here. So for the first name column, admin system will be there. Admin system is always there. Admin is the default system which will be there. And usually we give admin system as the highest trusted value. Why? Because we expect that, for example, a data steward logs into the MDM, means IDD application. Usually no one will log into MDM. We give access to the IDD application. So any data steward who logs into the IDD application and he does some changes, he updates a record. Probably he feels that some data is wrong and he wants to update it. So if he updates anything, that should get promoted into the master record directly, even if there is a trust on column. For example, I am in the first name column. If the data steward changes the first name, we expect that it should get promoted into the master record, even though there is a trust. It should not think that okay, admin system is having less trust, so it cannot promote that into the master record. Because eventually, if there is a trust on the column, MDM will calculate the trust. And if you have given admin system as less trust, for example, if I give admin is 90 here, if I give admin as 50, in this case, even if a data steward makes a change, he updates the first name column, it will not get reflected into the base object level because the trust is less. So that's the reason we always give admin as the highest trusted value, so that if any data steward logs in and he makes any changes, that should get directly promoted into the master record.
Why
Other than that,
100?
Sorry?
Why wouldn't we put 100?
We can put any value. There is no means standard here that I have to put only specific value. It is on you. If you want to put 100, you can put 100 also.
Well, if admin is the highest trust, why not to put 100?
Means that is what I'm saying. If you want, you can put 100. I have like put here because I have given like CRM as 80, sales as 70. So 90 is more than both of them. So that is why I put. If you want, you can put 100 also here.
Well, I mean, see, this is a little bit fuzzy to me. I understand the business probably will tell me what percentage to put. Is it like 80 is like a percentage of trust or just a number? I don't know.
This is just a number. This is not a percentage. This is just a number.
Okay, the number. So
I can put any number. I can put like I have put 70 and 80. I can put here 20, 30 also.
Right. Okay.
I just have to tell MDM which is more trusted. So it is on us like what numbers I put. So by looking at these numbers, basically MDM can easily identify that for the full name column, like sales system is this trusted, then the CRM, and then the admin system.
Yeah, I understand the purpose. I just don't feel comfortable about like how those numbers are selected. Why is it 90 and not 100? Why is it 80 and not 60?
No, yeah, means I'm saying that is on you. If you want, you can put any numbers here. That is not a fixed thing here. It is on like the person who is basically analyst who is deciding it. He can whatever number he wants to put, he can put that number.
So, it should be some kind of methodology behind it. But
no, there is no methodology behind it. Means just what we usually do is we just try to make it consistent throughout. So, for example, in this scenario, like business has told me that for the first name you trust CRM system, then the sales system. So for CRM I have given 80, for sales I have given 70.
okay.
Now for the middle name, they say that you trust sales system more than the CRM system. So what I will do is I just reverse the numbers. I will give sales as 80-20, I will give CRM as 70-10. That is like just to make it consistent throughout. Again, it is not important. For the first name I have given values as 90, 80, 70. For if I come to the middle name, I can give like 10, 20, 30. So for every column, if you want, you can change the values also. But just to make it consistent, we keep it like, because in case we have to know that for a particular column, which system is more trusted or what value I have given, every time I have to go and look into the design document. But as of now, I am clear that whichever is the highest system, I have given 80. Whichever is the second highest trusted system, I have given 70. So that is why we try to put a consistent numbers depending on the trust.
Can business change their mind and to say, okay, we don't trust this system anymore.
Yes.
We want to change it to another system. Like
yes, they can. Yeah, they can do it. At a later point of time also, there is an option where we can change it. Usually these things are decided at the initial phase, but if something happens, means at a later point of time they say that no, I want to change it, I want to make the other system as more trusted system, we can make it at a later point of time also. But that will get applied, means there is a recalculation mechanism is there. Once we change it, there is a recalculate which will recalculate the trust score for all the records. Again, based on the new settings.
We will have to recalculate for the data that is already in MDM?
Yeah, correct, which is already there in the MDM. So for that we have to calculate. But see, we have seen two scenarios, like when the trust is applied. The trust is applied when we merge the records or when we update the record.
Right.
So whatever records have been merged or whatever updates has happened till date, it will not affect that part. But if I am changing the trust score today, from today onwards, whatever this merges or updates are happening, that will happen on the new trust score.
That's right.
So this thing we will be putting like the maximum trust, the minimum trust, and then the decay period. So this is again like given by the business, that what is the decay period. So this the business can identify by looking at the updates, how frequently the updates are happening in their system. So that's the decay period. And then we have a graph type. So basically 3 types of graph types are present here. So the names are like slow initial, rapid later, rapid initial, slow later, and linear. So sometimes you might hear shorter names also, like SIRL or RISL. So that if you hear some terms like SIRL or RISL, it means that someone is talking about the graph type. So usually we give mention the small names only, RISL or SIRL. So this is dependent on like how the trust downgrade will happen, because we just discussed the decay period. So in this case, I have given a decay period of 10 years. So this means that during a period of 10 years, the trust for the sale system will go down from 70 to 10. And after a 10-year period, it never goes down, means that is a fixed. If 10 years is passed, it will not go beyond 10, it will be fixed at 10. So that is a decay period. But how that decay will happen, that is dependent on the graph type. So suppose like for the first one I will select slow initial, rapid later. For the second I select rapid initial, and for the admin system I will select linear. So you can see the graph types, how the graph type is. Let me make it okay. So admin, you can see is in the red color. Admin trust is just a linear straight. So it's a constant decrease for the admin system. CRM system. For the CRM system, we have selected rapid initial, slow later. So you can see how the trust is degrading at a faster speed in the initial phase, and at the end it is slow. And for the sales system, it is slow initial, rapid later. So in the initially it is downgrading at a slow speed, and at the end it is more. So even I can know this. For example, it is a little bit difficult here, but still, like if you point the mouse over it, so it shows that sales system on 1/1/16 it is 70, because it is on a yearly basis. So it will show year like 1/1/16. So on the first day it is like 70. Now if we come down, suppose here, so in 20 it is like 41. Sorry, not this one, I was looking into this one. So see, 20 it is 60. So the slow initial, rapid later, if I have selected, it has come down from 70 to 60 in 4 years. So 4 years only 10 is the decay. But if I go for the CRM system, which is having a trust score of 80, so if you see here, CRM is 80 on 1/1/16. But if I go to 20, it has come down to 41. From 80 to 41, just like more than half decrease is there. So this is a graph type. So depending on the graph type, the reduction happens. So usually, like in the real time, if you say, we always go with this option, slow initial, rapid later. So I can always select this option, or you can also select linear. But like most of the places that I've seen, every places they select like slow initial, rapid later itself, so that it degrades at a slower speed and in the initial part, and going at the end it will go down at a faster speed. Or you can select linear also, because names, we know that names are not going to decrease, means people usually don't change their names as such. So even a constant decrease is fine. So both can be selected, but this is the preferred one, slow initial, rapid later. Rapid initial, slow later is usually not selected. I haven't seen this being selected anywhere. So mostly people prefer using the slow initial, rapid later. For some of the columns, they even select linear. So as of now, like if you have to select, you can select everything as a slow initial, rapid later only. So these are the things which we have to set up for the trust, maximum and the minimum value, the decay period, and the graph type.
What is the reason for decay?
Decay is basically updates. Updates are happening because frequently we keep changing the data, like we discussed email address, like decays over 1 year. So when the business looks into the data, they see that on an average basis, people are updating their email ID every 1 year. On an average basis, people are updating their addresses, house address every 3 years. So
Okay,
that's an average. So that's called a decay period.
Right. Well, email address, maybe that's the example when it can be applied, but the name of the person, it will be pretty static, is it?
Yeah, mostly it will be static, but we never know that at a later point of time, like someone might change the name. So there has to be decrease. Some decrease has to be there, because if the data is loaded today, we say that means anything, like even if we purchase something, it has on the first day it will be like the value will be same, but on the next day the value keeps decreasing. Like if you purchase like a car or something, on the first day it is fine, but from the next day onwards the value keeps decreasing. So that's the concept they have, that anything which is loaded in the MDM on the first day will be highest, and then from the next day onwards there should be decrease. Decrease is basically we are saying that tomorrow if some update comes, because tomorrow suppose if I update my name and that comes into the MDM, that should get promoted into the master record. It should not happen that MDM is not promoting the new name. So that's the reason that for everything, whether it is going to, we know that it is going to change or it is not going to change. Usually the name doesn't changes as such, you are correct. But even though we will be downgrading it, so that at a later point of time, in case there is an update which is coming for a name column, it might be the next day only, the next today I got a record into the MDM, and the next day itself the person changes his name.
Well, so social security number probably will never change, is it?
Sorry.
Social security number, for example.
Yeah, that's correct.
Will never change.
Yeah, that's correct. Those things are not. I'm saying that some things which might not change, but if you are getting data from multiple systems, that's a mandatory thing that we have to downgrade it.
Huh. Okay.
Okay, so that was basically the trust part, and this we have to do for all the columns. Like we have done it for the first name, similarly we have to do it for like other columns as well, like middle name, last name, name generation, whatever columns I have selected, I have to do it for all the columns. And here you can change the settings again, because usually the maximum and the minimum value we keep it as constant. And just I discussed that for the last name, probably business might say that sales is more trusted, so I will give sales as 80-20 and CRM as 70-10. So I'll just reverse the numbers. But this decay period can be different, because this is based on the business, how frequently the updates are happening. And if you want, you can even change the maximum and the minimum thing, but just for consistency purpose, we keep it same, so that at a later point of time, it's not basically difficult for us to identify that what trust I have given, and otherwise every time I need to go and look into the design document that what trust I have given for each and every one. So that's the trust part, and like tomorrow we'll see the validation, like what are the validation rules and how we can set up the validation rule which will downgrade it. Plus we will load also some data. We will load some data from the landing table to staging and to the base objects, and we'll see like how the for some of the columns will give wrong values, so that the trust is downgraded. And that we can see basically in the MDM. In the MDM we have this data manager. Using this data manager we can see the values, what is the trust value, and after downgrade what is the current value. Okay, so we'll continue this tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Okay.
Bye.